Hello, you guys.
And welcome to the Women's Cave.
I think we're going to take turns now.
Are we? Are we going to take
Yes.
turns? I feel like you're going to start taking turns, and then you're just going to be like, I won it all.
Okay, so I'm going to go like this. I have decided that I'm going to be gracious and take turns because all champagne punishments will be put on hold.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because, I mean, our next interview, I'm going to be popping champagne no matter what.
Well, of course.
This interview, I would be popping champagne, but her
it's
teacher
3 o'clock.
says it's a good day to write, and so I have to act professional.
And it's 3 o'clock. Like, our next interview is like 4, so I feel like that's really happy hour time. Yeah. So champagne is allowable.
Actually, happy hour starts at 2 p.m. unless
well,
you're in LA.
We're not a restaurant, though. But, like, we're in our house. It's a pandemic outside. We're not a restaurant. So I feel like 4 o'clock in your house is like when the... Oh, I'm Jade. Oh, my... Should start.
Great job.
Okay.
Yeah,
and then I have to finish my sentence.
Now finish your sentence.
Should start.
Yeah. Okay. Just in case you missed that, we remember to introduce ourselves, and then we had to finish the happy hour statement. All right. We should probably start on books since we're not doing that great with chatter today, are we?
I don't know.
How do you feel we're doing? Don't answer that.
Okay. She's gonna be like horrible. She's gonna be like, boo. But I give them 0. Okay. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And I thought divorce was bad. Our books.
Hey.
So wait. No, wait. Go ahead. We'll learn to say it correctly.
Our literary life guides that are filled with pop poetry. I'm going to say, if you've been with us for a long time, you know exactly why we say they're filled with pop poetry. Go ahead, Jane.
Pop poetry. Okay, so, and I thought Divorce Was Bad with Other Life Lessons available on audible.com, barnesandnoble.com, amazon.com, and I thought being grown up was easy soon will be available on audible.com.
Yo, I got her down to a real deadline, end of June.
What? We will have
It's been 2 years, but she's saying end of June.
I'm going to tell you, in those 2 years, like, it's just been beautiful. She has done so much good work on there. Like, you can't rush genius.
That's true.
Like, even if you want to rush it, you shouldn't. You shouldn't rush genius.
So wait to buy the audiobook.
You're a genius. So wait till buy the audiobook. And I'm going to just point out one of my favorite books in that series, and I saw it. I did my journey alone, the all poetry book. And If Only I Were Me, also available on barnesandnoble.com. And then we have the Misfit Guide series.
And hi, I'm Winona, the author of the Widow's Debt series and Foreign Coffee, which is also an audiobook, and it's my first romance.
And we are co-founders of the 25 Hottest Indie Authors, Artists, and Advocate magazine. Check that out, $7.50. And
196 pages
There's
long.
value. There's value in that. But y'all aren't here to hear about us ramble on about what we've done or our random champagne habits. No, you're here to hear from our wonderful guest. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm me. Is my turn?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I got all excited about champagne. Nobody told me I was going to be drinking, but my name is Laura Shovan, and I am, a lot of things. I'm a poet in the schools for the Maryland State Arts Council, which means I go out and I do poetry workshops with kids in schools, and I am a poet. I'm just going to grab. So I have 2 books of poetry for adults. This one I wrote, and this one I edited. Mountain Log, Salt and Stone. Mountain Log, Salt and Stone, which won the Clarinda Harris Poetry Prize. And then this book that I did for Maryland Writers Association books, Life in Me Like Grass on Fire, Love Poems with 50 Maryland poets. I have a book that I edited with my friend Jenny Crawford, and this is poetry out of the Poets in the Schools program. And then 6 years ago, I published, wait a second, is that right? 4 years ago, I published my first children's book, which is a novel in verse called The Last Fifth Grade of Emerson Elementary. And 2 years ago, a follow-up book called Takedown, which it was named to the Amelia Bloomer list of feminist books for kids. Yeah. And then in August, my next book is coming out, and it's called A Place at the Table, and I co-wrote this with my friend Sadia Faruqi. So those are my books, and I'm right now living at home with my whole family. My husband and I were empty nesters for about 2 years, and now everybody's home. So that's
Isn't it fun though?
It is. It is fun, except when it's supposed to be a good day to write, and people want
That happens.
laundry and meals and stuff like that. Not that I do all that myself. I have to say my family is really good, but it's just having people in the space when you're not used to having them there. It's really distracting.
It is.
I can definitely understand
I
that.
definitely understand. Well, okay, I'm going to be braggadocious for a split second.
Don't be braggadocious.
No, I think we should brag on you first.
I know.
Oh, no, I want to hear it. It's out of the bag now. Let's hear it.
No. Canceling
She has been on so many important lists. Like, we need to get like her. She doesn't need to hear us.
You said I could be braggadocious. I'm taking it.
Yes.
You asked for it. No. My little braggadocious thing is that, like, you know, like during this time, I've actually had to revisit some of my own writing because we wrote this thing about how to write while you're on tour. Because, you know, 20 weeks out of the year, so most of our books, we did like 13 books while we were on tour. So most of our books actually got turned out in airplanes and on airports and at bars and hotels. And so I'm revisiting it just for my own house. Like, how do I apply this to staying at home now?
Yeah, I need to read that book.
Easier, right?
Yeah. No, because when you're at a hotel or you're traveling, you can really, like, you can put your blinders on and say to the people next to you on the airplane, I'm putting my earphones in, hello, message, I do not want to talk to you. And you can just do your writing. I get it.
I've actually never really written on an airplane. I have. You
Yeah.
have. Yeah, how did you do it?
How do I take my laptop and I put my earphones in and I give those messages like, don't talk to me. But I have to admit, my favorite thing to do on an airplane is knit. You usually see me like knitting on an airplane. It's very relaxing.
Okay, this is like the second person in the world that has kind of talked about knitting, and I love knitting, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Knitting. Winona has made fun of me for years and years and years. Like, you look like a little old lady because I sit in my comfortable chair, old rocking chair, because I have a really
rocking chair.
I have a really comfortable rocking chair though, and I like pull it out, and I'm just like knitting, and then like my cat
calming
on my lap.
Yeah, it's very calming.
And then she
even just going into a yarn shop and touching all the yarn, looking at all the colors.
Yes.
Best.
You get so excited.
Even with this old Jade, she has to admit, every time she would go shopping for yarn, I'm always like, I'm in the car, because I just want to touch it. It's so fun.
See, I get the other thing. My kids will stand and say, you cannot go in the yarn shop, Mom. You have enough yarn. You know, when you're a knitter, you can never have enough yarn.
No, you never have enough yarn. And then I use yarn for interesting things. Like some days when I have my afro out and it's like, and I just tie a little yarn on it to keep it back a little bit, and it's cute. And everyone's like, how did you get it like that? I was like, you need to go and get yourself some yarn. And it doesn't break off your hair.
I bought a bar. Yeah, this is weird. I bought a bar when I was 12 years old.
But it's
an actual
Coca-Cola
bar with Coca-Cola
stand. It's a cute Coca-Cola
stand. But it's an actual bar. Like, if I take it places, it sets up and it's like a bar with a shelf and a serving. So I bought it when I was 12 because I thought it was cool.
And she thought it was like just a Coca-Cola stand.
Yeah, I did.
And her mom was like,
it's
kind of not. Well, you know what? She ordered with her own money. You know what?
I worked almost 2 years. She was like, she let me have it. But now that I'm older, I know what it is. I feel like that's so inappropriate. But anyway, the point of the yarn thing was like, so it's some years old now. It's old. And it had little strings. So now I'm so happy she went yarn shopping because I just put the yarn, different color yarns in it. So for like, we restring it every couple of months with different color yarns so people come to visit. They're like, it's now. Yeah. It's like electric blue.
Change the look. Well, the other thing too is, you know, when we have these hobbies that are really important to us, I mean, the yarn thing, it shows up in this book. So knitting is one of the themes of the book. There's a character in A Place at the Table who's using knitting to help work through some depression and grief. So I feel like I can borrow from my real life hobbies, like cooking, and they show up in the books, which I really love that part of writing because it sort of like lets me dig into the hobby in a different way.
Well done, by the way.
And I love that segue. Like one day I'm gonna have a segue like you. It's gonna be.
I was just telling myself, I was like, you know, we've been diverted into another. Let's get back on book.
And you did it. I love it so much. So let's
get back on book.
So let's talk about how you borrow sometimes from your life to help the themes in your book. What are some creative ways that we can do that as authors? as we're trying to write our books and our characters are going all over the place, how can we borrow
Because,
from
they take the car, they steal, they hijack our creative car all the time.
Yeah. I think that, like, I'm going to take out my second book. So this book is about a girl who's the first girl on an all-boys wrestling team. And my son wrestled for 7 years, from second grade all the way through middle school. And I used to sit in his practices and at his tournaments, which are like, if you've got somebody in the family who does swimming or gymnastics, it's like you're sitting for hours, and then your kid competes for like 3 minutes, and then you're sitting for hours again. So I would sit up in the bleachers and just jot down, I would knit, or I would jot down these notes about what I was seeing, and I put it away. And the interesting thing for me with that was when my son quit the sport at the end of 8th grade, it was part of our lives for so long that, a few years later, I was like, I'm not done with that. And that really inspired the book, is just not only looking back at my notes from when he was wrestling, but also thinking about, when kids are really associate their identity very strongly with a sport or an activity, and then they quit. Why is, like, what's happening there? So for that book in particular, it was really puzzling through the influence that this sport had on our family and what it means when a kid quits a sport that's been really important to who they are.
I love that.
I love that very much.
So is this book a middle grade or elementary?
Yeah, middle grade. So this one, I would say probably 4th grade and up. The characters are in 6th grade. And then this book is appropriate for a little bit younger, like a read aloud for 2nd grade. But for self-reading, usually 3rd grade, because this one is all in poems. I'm just going to show you one of the coolest poems in this book. This one is written all in poems, so kids find it really accessible and fun to, just fun to interact with because of the poems on the page. Like, this is a concrete poem. So it's a self-portrait, and it's in the shape of the boy. And if you look really closely, I'm going to come right up close to the screen. He's got a secret. And you see by his heart that there's like a bold letters. If you read it, that's the name of the girl he has a crush on.
Oh.
So
I love it.
Yeah, and then this next one, the characters are also in 6th grade. And this one's a bit long. Like, this is a meaty book, I think. So this, I think, would be like maybe 4th grade, 5th grade up through middle school, especially for kids who are first generation American or who are bicultural. I feel like this one has a lot of appeal.
Did you feel comfortable writing for a bicultural?
Yeah, well, my mom comes from England, and I grew up, and I had a really very unusual growing up when I was small. My dad had been a college professor, and my parents were on a teaching exchange in Thailand for a year before I was born. And they brought back with them these 2 sort of middle school age boys from Thailand who lived with us from the time I was born until I was 5 years old. So, and my dad's Jewish. My mom my mom converted, but I just come from like a real mix of families. So that bicultural identity is really important to me, and it shows up in all of my books.
That is so awesome.
But you know what? You guys collaborate. Part of the most fun for this book was working with my friend Sadia, and we co-authored it. So we alternate chapters and alternate main characters, and I just really like that process. So I'm going to throw it back at you because you guys collaborate. You want to talk about what that's like for you?
So Winona and I, we collaborate.
Well, no, our first book is with a bunch of ladies, and that was more of a collaboration. And then we have 13 ladies in the group total. Yeah. So it becomes like, they send in poems, and we write filler. Well, she writes, and then I write filler poems to make everything.
She's not saying she writes filler poems.
I enjoy writing filler poems.
You write connective tissue, right? It's like
she writes connective tissue, and then we collaborate on a poem. Look, you'll see in several of our books, and there will be a lot of names there because they started to end the poem, and we were like, okay, this can be better, and then we're like, okay, let's get on a Zoom call. Let's talk about how you might change these words, think about this? What do you think about that? And then, like, when Winona and I collaborate, it kind of goes, Winona writes it, and then I go back and be like, and this is better. And this is, because we've been friends forever, so we kind of share. Okay. So I know what she's saying.
I think it's really fascinating. I've talked to so many author pairs who collaborate on their books, and everybody does it differently. Like, everyone has a different style. I talked to one pair who, if I remember right, like one of the women dictated, and the other woman would like edit as she transcribed and that was their process. Which I thought it was fascinating because it's so different from how my friend and I worked.
Yeah, that would be more like us and Brandy. She does a great job with that. And while she does that, and then she adds and changes while she's doing it. I'm like, girl, how do you hold that in your brain? Girl, that's what she needs to do.
And I think that like also helps us a lot.
Because we go through sign language interpreters.
Right. So I'm used to looking at somebody's words and then kind of transcribing them into a way that other people can see.
Oh,
so that's how my brain works.
All right.
I think that's how I can look at stuff and be like, oh, this is what you meant.
Girl, she's good.
Yeah, and she should be bored.
She's got the board nod.
Yeah, and she should be bored because that's way bored.
I'm out of it now. That was one question. Y'all took 7 minutes.
True. Truth on that. See?
Okay, let's get to awards because that's the fun part. Yes. So normally, people would ask, how about the writing and that stuff. I don't care about that.
I mean,
right now.
We
do. I'm coming back to it. I want to know what you wore. Because every time I go to an award show, all I worry about is what I'm wearing on the red carpet.
I know, like excuses to buy new shoes.
Yeah, someday. I studied screenwriting when I was in an undergrad, and I had my Oscars dress all picked out in my head. It was going to be green velvet, this whole thing. But that was in the 90s, so different times. So I don't know if it has it on here, the list of awards. Nope. So this book won a lot of like honorable mentions and awards. It was on several lists for children's books for Best Poetry Book of the Year. It won the award for Best Poetry Book of the Year for Sibbles, which is the children's and youth, like the bloggers. So people who blog about children's literature. Sibbles, CYBILS. And but to me, among the awards, one that was most important to me was it won an Arnold Adolph Award, which is through the Virginia Hamilton Conference, and he is like one of my poetry heroes. So when I found out about that, I broke out in tears. To me, that was really important, and I got to go to the conference, and I got to meet Marilyn Nelson. I was just like, oh my God, it's Marilyn Nelson. I love her so much. She's so brilliant. And so that's this book, and it was on several state lists. This book, Takedown, like I said, it was on the Amelia Bloomer list of feminist books. It was a Junior Library Guild selection, which is a special program for librarians. And it was on a few state lists, and it was also a PJ Arway book. So this character here, his name is Lev, is Jewish in the story. So this book was through a special subscription through PJ Arway, which sends out books to Jewish families. And then A Place at the Table, obviously it's not out yet, but fingers crossed. It's been really well reviewed so far, so I'm excited about that book. And yeah.
You're gonna get so many awards.
All I ask is, can we be your +1, too?
Yes, sure. I don't, this is a thing, you guys. I'm going to share this with you. In the children's poetry world, there's not like one big award. You know how there's the Newbery Award for usually best novel for children, and Caldecott for the best illustrated book, and Sid Fleischman Award for, oh gosh, why am I forgetting? That's for humor, isn't it? And Sidney Taylor Award for best Jewish book. There's no single award from the American Library Association for poetry, for best poetry book of the year. So you can come with me, you can be my +1, and we can change that.
Absolutely.
Next time we go to a conference together, we'll start advocating for a poetry award.
We will lobby like I don't know what.
Yes, we will.
Well, do you have a children's poetry book in you?
No, I do
Oh,
not.
no.
I don't. I'm sorry. I write pop poetry, which isn't real poetry.
Oh, but it
Of course
sells
it's real
well.
poetry. What makes you say it's not real poetry?
I mean,
do I get to tell a story again?
I'm going to tell it very briefly. There were a few people, and especially our professors, that said, "Oh, you don't write literary poetry. You write like pop poetry." So, like, that's not a bad thing. Ariana Grande makes money too. So
I was crushed.
She was crushed, and I was like, "Can't everybody be Billie Holiday? Okay." Some of us have to be the Ariana Grandes of the world.
You know, all of the Instagram poets have done really, really well. So I have a real issue with that. That's a whole like academic versus poetry of the people thing.
Yep, absolutely, and that's okay. And so we said, you know what? It's not a bad thing to be a pop poet because there are so many people that have read our book, and this is exactly what they said. Normally I don't read poetry because I don't understand what in the world they talk about. You tell me what you're talking about, and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And it's changed people's lives, which is all that we can ever hope for.
Okay, so now we have discussed that. Skipping on back.
Yes.
I'm like trying to stay on task.
Yes,
I'm trying.
Way to do this, Winona.
We're doing pretty
well. But I'm going to say the coming out my mouth is not going to be the trying part. You said getting to the Oscars, you picked out a dress. I'm going to say great job on being prepared. Can you share a high five here? Social distance is high five.
Bam.
Yes. We got invited, had no idea what we were going to wear, so we didn't go.
No idea.
None.
No idea.
We got all the way out there. We were like, yeah, we just can't.
Yeah, no one. No, I'm a poet. I don't do that.
So anyway, now, real question.
Yes.
You said that you do poetry for the Maryland Arts Council, right?
So the Maryland State Arts Council, which is like our state arts organization, has a long-standing program called Artists in Education or Artists in Residence, which is undergoing some changes right now, so I might not have the name exact. But they send out different artists to do residencies at schools. So like my kid's school had a stained glass artist one time. That's just an example of what you might have. But they also are a little bit unusual because a lot of states have this program, but not a lot of states have it for literary arts. And I've been doing it for, I cannot believe it, but 18 years. For 18 years, I've been visiting schools and doing poetry workshops with kids, and I absolutely love it. And actually, I don't think I could have written this book without that experience, without going out and hearing what, the 3rd and 4th and 5th graders are saying about their lives through their poetry. I mean, you're talking about pop poetry. You think kids write literary poetry? Sometimes.
Absolutely.
But does it...
So out there, impressive poetry. I'd be like,
right.
Oh,
I mean, it's completely valid what they're writing because it's true to their experience and true to how they use language. And like I said, I wouldn't have been able to write last 5th grade without my experience working with kids. And I just love it. It's, to me, they're still at that age where that fear of poetry hasn't been ingrained in them. And they just love to play with language. And they're also given, when I come in and do poetry with them, it's different than the writing that they do for their regular classroom. And they feel a freedom to express themselves that they don't necessarily feel when somebody's telling them to write an essay in a box that's like the size of a postage stamp.
Exactly.
I love it so much.
She likes going out to school.
I do.
I
love it so much. I mean, well, I wasn't an interpreter. I interpreted there for years, so I kind of miss my children. Sometimes. I miss kids. I be like, my kids.
What is the most interesting experience that you've had?
With teaching?
I guess I was going to say with teaching, but then I was like, we should just do the whole career.
The whole career. Oh my gosh. It's just, I think, all right, I'm going to tell you this is one of my favorites. When my first children's book came out, we had a launch event at an independent bookstore, the Ivy Bookshop in Baltimore. And I think my daughter was, I don't know, she was 15. She was a sophomore in high school. And it's so funny to me looking back because when I first started writing professionally for the newspaper, she was still in a stroller. And I would take her out on assignment with me to write stories for the Baltimore Sun in her stroller. So, she was maybe 2 or 3. And here we were, and it was my first novel from a traditional press, from a big 5 publisher. and we were at this launch event at the Ivy Bookshop, and all of a sudden my 15-year-old stands up and she said, I would like to make a speech, and surprised us all. And she made this incredible speech all about how, I'm going to start to get weepy-eyed right now, all about how over the years she watched me and my perseverance. This was a book that I worked on for 6 years before it sold, and then 2 additional years before it published. So she talked about perseverance and how important that was to her as a young woman, watching me persevere and reach that goal. And we were just all crying, and nobody videotaped it. I wish we had. But to me, that was a really special moment, because it wasn't just about my accomplishment. It was about her recognition that this is a baton that gets passed to the next generation of women.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you can't ask for anything more
No.
to instill that in your own child. Like, you want to instill it in other people's children, obviously, but your own daughter, like, you can't, I don't think you can ask for anything else in life.
No.
To be like, no, it's not going to happen overnight, but you get there if you just keep working.
That's right.
And I think writing is one of those careers where perseverance is not, is I pretty much want to say it is the foundation.
Oh, yeah.
Even if you're a bad writer and you keep going, you're going to get decent, and you're probably going to do something with a career. As you can see, because I'm not a great writer.
We're pop poets.
And we're doing okay.
Also, since you do write poetry and you're such a phenomenal person, thank you for coming on the show. What are the 3 top things that you would tell young, inspiring authors or poets, or not even young, just inspiring poets?
May I add something to that?
Sure.
Especially since everyone tells you you do not make money writing poetry. So we always need that extra little, yes, we can do something.
So let's address the money thing first, because I think there are just some practical things. I think especially now, now that we're in the age of Zoom and everything, you might not make a ton of money publishing a book unless, you know, like you guys, you're traveling all the time and out there really getting the word out. But there are new platforms to get yourself into the community, like Zoom, like doing webinars. You know, you guys are members of Maryland Writers Association, so am I, right?
Yes, we are.
So
just really over here, but we are.
Using those connections and saying, you know what, I have a product. I have knowledge of novels in verse, how to write a novel in verse. So I can construct a webinar and I can make some extra money doing that. Or I can go out and be a writer in the schools, or, you know, do school visits, whatever. So that's the money piece. Now back to Maryland Writers Association. Maryland Writers Association was the first writing group that I joined when I moved here to Maryland, before even my first book came out. And I feel like having that community really gave me a foundation. We moved here 20 years ago from New Jersey, and I left a really tight-knit writing community, and I was kind of at sea. And Maryland Writers Association gave me that community, and I've joined additional ones since then. But that would be my biggest piece of advice, is get involved in your writing community. Even if you're shy, you'll meet other shy people. Lots of writers are introverts. But having that, you know, people who can help you find a critique group, or any of those kinds of things. And then the opportunities will start to come as people get to know you. And that part of being in the writing community and having an active role in the writing community, I think, is really important to me. And that's my number 1. Was I supposed to do 2 more, or is that one big enough that it can count for all 3?
No, it's your decision. You can do 2 more if you feel like it.
I like having a critique group. You know, I think some people feel like there are rules for a critique group. I've been in a critique group that's met once a week, and for a while that worked for me. And currently, because of where I am with writing with my career, my critique group meets online, and we only meet when a member has a full novel to look at. And that's working right now. So I think that being flexible and kind of recognizing what your needs are and feedback is a good piece of advice, I guess. That's advice I would have given myself 10 years ago.
There you go. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
When Miss Shovan, never mind. I'm calling you Laura because I know how to say that.
We don't say people's
you
names.
Got it right. You got it right.
Did?
Yeah. Shovan. Yeah, you got it right.
Sorry.
Okay. Most people try to make it sound French, but you did it just right.
Whew, I'm still sticking with Laura. It's not going to come out right twice, no. Okay. So when Laura said that she is busy in the writers community, there not a lot. Like every week,
doubt.
I look up and I'm like, Laura's doing what now? And then I was like, I have to ask. Like, it was the first time we've been home this long, and I'm like, this Laura lady shows up everywhere. I have to ask. I was like, how did I not know before? Anyway, you are amazing at like everything that I've seen or listened to on demand, or you've been really great at it.
So thank you for being amazing.
Thank you. You know, I think part of it is excuse me for allergies. My background is as an educator, so I feel like it's really important for us to share. And like I was saying with my daughter, yes, but with other writers also, you know, give people a leg up, because I think about the women and the other writers who helped me out and are still helping me out, and I just appreciate that so much. And I think there's a lot of thinking of like the writing life is like a pie and everybody only gets so much of a piece, and I want to push back against that and say, you know, it's not like that. That's not the model that I kind of go by. I go by more like the more that we share with each other, the more comes back to each of us.
Absolutely. I kind of like her pie thing. So
I'm going
to say that the writers are the bakers of the pie. You can have as many as
I like that.
Yeah.
And everyone can have it.
I'm not going to bake a pie though.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No.
Now I just
no one
about
knows
pie
because we did it before, but like she does sourdough, but she doesn't do pie. Now I'm sad. I planned on making a big old order like apple pie, sourdough.
Well, we can pull out the freezer because I do have like 2 or 3 of them left. I do little fried pies.
Ooh.
She does little fried pies tossed in cinnamon and sugar.
After you fry them.
Yeah. I'm speechless.
It's good stuff.
And then she
Sounds
freezes
really
them
good.
like throughout the year we can just pull them.
Well, I don't. I make the little pockets and then I freeze them.
Uh-huh.
And then did you feel like having a pie? You can just bring it out and like.
So do you make your own pastry dough or do you buy the pre-made?
Pick it up.
You make it. I have made it. I have made pastry dough before, but I'm on this sourdough kick, you know, and it's like it needs attention. It's a living thing. You got to feed it every day. You have to make sure it's happy and warm.
I like it very much.
Yeah, we need to order.
I know.
I mean, we're going to order books, obviously. We're ordering books. But I'm ordering sourdough.
Also, while we're talking about books, where can people find your books and more about you online?
Well done.
Okay, so people can find my books anywhere. IndieBound is a great resource. The Ivy Bookshop in Baltimore, you can order online. You can order signed copies online. Just leave a note for them that you'd like a signed copy. So pretty much anywhere that books are sold, you can find my books, except for this one. If you're an educator and you'd like to use this as a resource, it's actually a PDF that you can get a link to at my website. My website is laurashovan.com. Nobody else has my name, so anytime you want to find me, just type in Laura Shovan and I will be there and I'll say hello.
Okay, fabulous. Right. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Van.
Would you like to wrap us up?
Yes, I would. Thank you so much for coming on.
I just wanted to sound professional for one more moment. Go ahead.
You can find out everything your ladies are doing on www.andwethought.com. While you're there, take a moment, go to the ladies tab, go to the middle and see those charities that we proudly support. Yes, we know these are hard times, and yes, not everyone has money to give, but maybe you can give clothes or just knowledge that you have that would help them. So we thank you in advance, and just remember this is a win-win situation. So yay, win-win. And remember that wisdom is all around you if
you're open to finding it and accepting it. So peace and love, you guys, from Winona
and Jade. Bye-bye.